bountiful feast right here. I got my booty right there. Look at that. Oh, my silver and gold. Man, this is unbelievable. Fish and chips. Now, I have an awesome pirate story. But first I gotta do some shout-outs. And I got my shout-outs somewhere. Ah, here they are. Hear ye, hear ye. Lyle Kyler Sib. Big shout-out to you, Lyle Kylers. Tori the Apache Warrior. Tori's been with me for a long time. He never says much. Eli Cortez. Eli Cortez, I'm not sure if Eli is a little kid, but somebody said he wants a little shout out, so a special shout out to Eli. And Big John, there's a pirate name for you. Arr! Big John. Arr! And Shumway 1976. That was a good year too. And a big shout out to all the rest of my viewers, because you people are so amazing. Arr! Yeah. Okay. So I gotta take a sip of my Pepsi. I got this lovely NANAIMO bar. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? My lovely NANAIMO bar. I'll just put that by my telescope over here. Now I'm gonna dig in because I'm starving. Now, as most of you know, if you've been following my channel, I live on Vancouver Island. Now, Vancouver Island is, it doesn't feel like an island because it's so big. I mean, you know, I live in the second smallest city on the island, and it's 100,000 people. Victoria is the capital, and it's on this island as well. And I mean, Vancouver Island is actually longer than the country of England. So you can see why I say it doesn't really seem like an island, even though we're surrounded by water, and technically it is. Until you try to get off and there's a 3 ferry sailing way, then it seems like an island. Got some lovely coleslaw. But we're surrounded by thousands of smaller islands. And one of those islands is called Protection Island. Now, if you're downtown Nanaimo and you're at the waterfront and you're overlooking the water and you're looking at 2 islands, on the left would be Newcastle Island, which is a provincial marine park, and the right is Protection Island, which is a private island. Now, Linda and I, a short while ago, took a trip over to Protection Island. And the reason for that was in 1989, Canada's first floating pub opened on Protection Island. It's called the Dinghy Dock. Got some lovely tartar sauce. So we want to go over and have a meal. They got excellent food over there. It's very good. I used to take my boat there all the time when I had a boat. We used to always go there. There's a ferry you can take, and there's a ferry to Newcastle as well. The first time I ever went to Protection Island was we were camping on Newcastle. And the tide was so low, we just walked over. So Linda and I took a boat ride over, a ferry ride, and we got there around shortly after 11, which is when it opens. That cod is so good. The place I got this from is called the Cod Squad. So we got there shortly after 11. I had fish and chips. Linda had fish tacos. Then we went for a little walk around the island. Now when you're at the Dinghy Dock, you can sit inside or outside. We almost always sit outside. I've only sat inside once before, but it was a bit breezy this day, so we decided to sit inside. But when you're at the Dinghy Dock, you look across the water, you can see the city of Nanaimo. It's about roughly a mile away. Doesn't seem like it. Seems like maybe a quarter of a mile. But anyways, So you can see the city of Nanaimo, plain as day. There's lots of boat traffic, seaplanes, that sort of thing. So after a delicious meal, we went for a walk. So you just walk around the back of the pub, down the pier, up the stairs, and you're on the island, Protection Island. Now, Protection Island is about, it has about 360 residents that live there. It's about 642 acres in size. So, now the thing that's interesting is when you step on that island, it's like you're in a whole different world. It's not like being in the city at all. It's completely different. People get around by golf carts and that sort of thing. You know, it's very interesting. So, that's what people get around. This is really good. So, one thing you'll notice about Protection Island is it's always, it's got an underlying pirate theme. You know, there's a place called Pirate Lane, which is like the main street kind of thing, you know. And then there's also, Captain Morgan Boulevard, that sort of thing. And, you know, everything is pirate. It's got a pirate name or a pirate theme, you know. It's just, it's all about pirates. And that's because that island was once owned by a pirate. A modern day pilot. Well, when I say modern, he lived in our time. The pirate that I'm speaking of, his name was Frank Ney. And Frank Ney was also the mayor of our town for 2 terms. So, I'll tell you a bit about Frank Ney. Frank Ney was born in London, England in 1918. He was in the RAF, the RCAF. He was a pilot in World War II, very skilled. He was also an instructor. He moved to Canada in 1946 and ended up in Nanaimo. And he became our mayor twice, from 1968 to 1984 and 1987 to 1990. Now, Frank Ney was an amazing man. He, very athletic. He was a skier, swimmer, figure skater. He was president of the local figure skating club at one time. He was a member of the British Columbia Legislative Assembly back in the 50s. So he's very much involved in politics. Hence the reason he became our mayor. But in 1960, he bought Protection Island, subdivided the whole thing, and sold all the lots. Kept wanting to do for himself. And he sold it under a pirate theme. And he became a very, very, very wealthy man. Now, he also bought another island. Called Ruxton Island. And in 1996, my ex-wife and I bought a lot on Ruxton Island. It was an acre of waterfront. And we built a cabin on 97. And our family, you know, my kids and I, we all owned that for 6 years. It was just wonderful. So he owned that island at one time too, and did the same thing, subdivided and made even more money. And he became very much involved in real estate. He started a land trust and developing company. He started a notary things all did very well. And like I said, he was very wealthy, but he didn't flaunt his wealth. He was generous with his money, but he didn't throw it around either. Frank Ney drove the same car. He had this Cadillac, I think it was a 74 or something like that, or 73. And it was the worst color ever. It was kind of like a dusty rose kind of color. It was kind of weird, but you know, the cars like back then, you know, twice as long as your house. He drove that same car for years. A lot of millionaires would have a different car every year, and probably several of them. He never had a mansion, but he had a beautiful home on Beach Drive, 5-bedroom home, overlooking the ocean. But by millionaire standards, it was a modest home. And he owned a big boat called the Blue Girl. Now that boat wasn't a great big yacht. I think it was probably maybe a 28 or 32, I'm not sure. But he had that same boat for years, and he'd take people out there. He'd always see them out on the water, driving people around. Now Frank loved to dress up as a pirate. He had like really nice pirate uniforms. He had about 4 of them apparently. Now he would always dress up as a pirate during civic events and you know, parades, stuff like that, charity events. And he donated a lot of his time to charity. You would quite often see him flipping burgers at McDonald's for charity and all that sort of thing. Several times I saw him. Several times I ran into him on the street, you know. I say hello sometimes. He'd say, well, you know, I'm 10 minutes late for my meeting now. Boys don't have time to chat, so, you know, have a great day. I would see him at the Dairy Queen or in a local restaurant, you know. And he was a real man of people. And he was very colorful, a very colorful man. And, you know, just a real character. I don't know if you're familiar with a TV show called Bones. It's one of those forensic shows. It came on, I think late 90s, went off in 2005 or something, I'm not sure, but I think in season 1, episode 18, they have a character who was a mayor of a town. His name is Frank Ney, and he dresses up as a pirate. Now, it even says on Wikipedia that it was based on Frank Ney, the mayor of NANAIMO. I mean, it would have to be too much of a coincidence not to be. So anyways, like I said, Frank was a very colorful man. He was a very good mayor, did a lot for NANAIMO. As a matter of fact, that book was written about him. Frank Ney, a Canadian legend, written by Paul Gogo, a local historian and musician, a very talented man himself. That's a good coleslaw. So, in 1967, Canada is celebrating his 100th birthday. It's our centennial. Now, Frank Ney is not yet the mayor. He won't be the mayor until 1968, so in 1966, Frank Ney decides he wants to really do something to put Nanaimo on the map. So him and a buddy of his are kicking around some ideas. And they're thinking, you know what? We should have some kind of an event race or something, and they thought a sailboat race, but I thought, sailboat races are a dime a dozen. There's always a sailboat regatta somewhere, They wanted to do something different. So they came up with the idea of racing bathtubs. And Frank's friend says, Frank, I got a bathtub out back. Let's haul it around here and throw it in the fish pond and see how it floats. Frank goes back there, they grab this thing and they're lugging it. And they put it in the fish pond and it sinks like a rock. Can you see all my gold and all my silver? So they thought, well, that's not going to work. So they thought, well, if we made a fiberglass mold out of it, maybe that would work. So they tried that. Made a fiberglass mold. Took it down the beach, put it in the ocean, and it floated beautifully. Now you're probably thinking, well, the reason that tub sank in the fish pond was because they didn't have the plug in it, but they did put the plug in it. So they took it down the ocean. The fiberglass mold folded really nice. But when one of them got in there, it started rolling over. It wasn't stable at all. So they said, well, it needs some pontoons. They got some big sticks, attached empty jugs to it. Use that for buoyancy. That actually worked. They put on a 3 horsepower motor, and it just kind of chugged along. Hard to steer. It's kind of plowed water, Wasn't fast. Kind of boring, actually. Oops. They thought, this will never work. This will not fly. So they decided to put on a 6 horsepower motor and build a hull for each tub. Each tub would be built on top of a planing hull because it would have to be able to float and be stable and be able to steer. Once they did that, they realized they were onto something. The tubs would actually not only float, but they could plane on the water, they could steer, and they could really go with a 6 horsepower motor. So, in 1967, NANAIMO had its first official bathtub race. Now the race was from NANAIMO on Vancouver Island, where I live, to the city of Vancouver, Kitsilano Beach, 36 miles across the Georgia Strait, all open water. Now in July, that's fairly calm. Usually, there's swells and all that, but you can go out there and cross that in a small boat. But in November, when it gets rough, even the ferries won't cross, they'll cancel. I was on the ferry coming back from a Stones concert in '94 with my son, and it was so rough you couldn't see out the windows. I thought we were going to go down. I was that worried about it. But, these ferries, a lot of them hold just shy of 400 vehicles, so they're huge. They buses and semis, and they have, restaurants and snack bars and souvenir shops. They carry, a lot of people. So if they can't cross, you're not going to go across in a tub. Now, fortunately, in July, you don't normally get that kind of weather. It's been choppy out there a few times, 1989 was one of the roughest crossings with only 6 people finishing, 6 tubs finishing. Now, in this inaugural race, like I said, 36 mile, straight across to Vancouver, a 36-mile race. So they put out a press release, and thinking this would only be a one-time thing, they thought, well, we'll see what happens. So they had over 200 entries, over 200 tubs. Every tub, by rule and by maritime law, has to have a escort tub. No, pardon me, an escort boat. And my dad was an escort in '75. So each tub has to have an escort boat in case they get in trouble out there. So now that's doubled to over 400 vessels. Then you have all the people with their own boats that are getting closer watching. You got the media. I think the inaugural race had something like 700 boats in that little harbor. It was crazy. So anyways, it was just really crazy. Now, Life magazine was in town to cover the whole event. There was somebody from the New York Times was there. Media from all over the world was there. You know, it was crazy. There was a story written up in Time magazine. Every newspaper and TV station in Canada was there. From Los Angeles, San Francisco, European countries. It was unbelievable how many people came to cover this race. It was crazy. They created a monster. So anyway, this is so good, by the way. The race goes off. And they always start the race with the firing of a cannon. What else, right? Boom, 11 o'clock. Now the race was held on a Sunday because they figured that was the one day when most people would be available to come watch. And it was at 11 o'clock, so they could attend church at 9, be there at 11. Now since that day, race time has always been the third Sunday in July at 11 o'clock. So, the cannon goes boom, tubs all go. Out of over 200 tubs, only 47 finished. A lot of them get swamped right in the harbor because there's so many waves and all that. And it'd just be crazy. Some guys ran out of gas, some guys just got stranded, who knows, right? A lot of different things can happen. So, the winner, after almost 3 hours, was Rusty Harrison. He won the very first bathtub race. So that was pretty cool. Now you might think, well, somebody could cheat. Many people tried. They'd take a 7.5 horsepower motor and put a 6 horsepower cowling on it and try and get away with it. And there's, over the years, there'd be tubbers come in first. But after every race, there's mechanics checking out every motor, every single motor, to make sure that they're only 6 horsepower. Now, as time went on, the motor size was increased from 6 horsepower to 7.5 horsepower. But they found that 7.5 horsepower motors were hard to come by, so they changed to 8 horsepower. It was 8 horsepower for a long time, then now it's 9.9 horsepower. I'll tell you, my friends, you take a tub, put a 9.9 horsepower motor on it, and it comes right out of the water. Very fast. So the I think what took the fun out of it though at some point was all the rules. They have rules and regulations, that goes on forever. I want to say twice as long as my leg, but it's probably longer than that. One of the main rules is your tub with the motor and the passenger, or the pilot, has to be at least 350 pounds minimum. So that's kind of even for everybody if you can keep it at minimum 350 pounds. And so much of it has to be out of the water, and this kind of thing. Now, it's very interesting. This cod is so good. Oh my gosh, it's good. The bathtub race has really taken off. I mean, from the first race in '67, it's still going. As a matter of fact, that's the most recent winner right there. That one right there. That's the most recent winner. Still going. Now, bathtub generally starts, like I said, it's the third weekend in July. Friday night is when it starts off. They have dances and beer gardens and food trucks. And Saturday in the afternoon, they have the Sail Pass Parade on land. You get to see the world's biggest bathtub. Local celebrities, and it's just a big parade. That night they have fireworks, more dances. The King Neptune dance. For years, they used to burn a boat in the harbor as a sacrifice to the gods. They stopped doing that, I assume because of environmental issues. But they did that for years. And then Sunday is race day. Now, about a week before that, they have the Silly Boat Regatta, which kind of is a slow kickoff to Bathtub Week, because Bathtub Week is now known as the NANAIMO Marine Festival. That's a really big deal around here. They actually started minting coins. I got these bathtub coins from 2005. These ones are they're redeemable to participating merchants, mainly just for that week. And a lot of people are in on it. I got three of these from 1969, the first year they minted these coins. And these coins are Canada's longest going trade dollar. There's no other trade dollar in Canada that's been going as long as these have. That's kind of interesting. So, excuse me. Got a napkin here somewhere. So they have the City Boat Regatta. That's always a lot of fun. All weekend long, big party. Everything is bathtub. The streets are just filled with so much atmosphere. Now, in 1975, there was a bit of a black eye cast on the little bathtub thing. The Saturday night before, everybody's downtown and there's, everyone's having a great time. It looks like Times Square, just everybody's there, right? But this mob mentality kind of formed. They started getting out of hand. They started, smashing storefront windows like jewelry shops and just different things. They made their way up to the liquor store, started looting the liquor store, and it just got crazy. It was just, I don't know how it happened. It never happened before. It's never happened since. But Frank Ney, who had been the mayor since 1968, actually was this far from reading the Riot Act, literally. The RCMP were in riot gear, ready to go. Fortunately, everybody came to their senses and went home. And that's the only time that ever happened. It was just kind of stupid. So, anyway, bathtub's a big deal around here. Gotta talk about the Australians. The Aussies started coming over in the 70s. Phil Holt, Jamie Wilmot, and Gary Deathridge. 3 Aussies that used to come over and win. The Aussies won 5 years straight from 76 to 1980. I thought it was great. I loved it. I met a lot of the Aussies when they were in town. They're wonderful people, a lot of fun. Everybody loved them. We didn't mind getting beat our own game because we liked the Australians. They were just wonderful people. And it was so much fun having them. Plus, they started having their own races, and it just expanded the whole bathtub thing. You know, the more interest of the country show, the bigger it gets. And we had someone from New Zealand come over and win. Even if you don't win, if you just participate, you know, it's very cool. So the bathtub race always went from NANAIMO to Vancouver, 36 miles. In 1997, they changed that. There'd always been a big complaint among the locals here, and I can see it, was that we saw the race start, but we never got to see it finish. And that always bugged a lot of people. And so Vancouver, they started losing interest in the race because it kind of interfered with Seafest, their own festival. They needed extra security and blah, blah, blah for the bathtub race, and they just kind of lost interest. So they changed the course. It's still 36 miles. Instead of going to Vancouver, they go up the Georgia Strait, and they go way down that way, turn around, come back this way, and that way we get to see them finish. And it's just as much a race as it was before. But I think it's better. I lived here for over 20 years before I got to see a race finish. Actually, you know what? It was almost 40 years. Because I saw my first race finish, I think, in 2011 or something. Thereabouts. Because I always had to work Sundays. It was hard getting that day off. So, I finally saw my first race finish, but it's much better now because you can see it leave and come back to the same spot, which is so cool. Now, when these tubbers are when they're sitting in these bathtubs, yeah, the average racing time is around 2 hours, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on how choppy it is. But when the race is finished, they can barely get out of their tubs. They have to sort of fall out of their tubs because they don't have their land legs. They're all cramped up. And it's funny to watch them get out of the tub because rarely does somebody ever just jump out of the tub. They fall out and they kind of roll around, try and get up, and they stumble and fall. And they go hobbling up the beach as fast as they can, trying to ring that bell. the bathtub race is just, it's an amazing event. It really is. Started by a man who wanted to do something to put his town on the map. And he succeeded. Now, Frank Name, the pirate who started it all, what an amazing man. His son, Brad, sold me my first house in 1983. And, his kids are all very nice. Frank Name, his wife, I think they had 5 kids of their own, I'm not sure, but they adopted kids and they fostered kids. Very, very nice people. I know I said before, he was very wealthy and you wouldn't know it, but of course a lot of times you'd see him downtown, he'd have like a beautiful suit on, he'd be impeccably dressed, but he was a businessman, and of course, and when he wasn't wearing that, he was wearing this pirate suit, so out there he'd be out there waving his sword, it's kind of funny. That was good fish and chips. NANAIMO bar. I think this was first invented back in the 50s, I think. Very delicious. It's a no-bake recipe. Oh, I'll tell you. When I eat an NANAIMO bar, my usual dose is about half like that. It's very, very decadent, very rich, very, very sweet. Yeah, Frank Name. They named a school after him. Frank J. Ney Elementary. There's been plays and musicals written about him. Born in 1918. Now, like I said, after 1990, he was no longer the mayor. And in 1992, November of 1992, Frank Ney made one last stop to City Hall. And the mayor at that time, Mayor Joy Leach, came out and placed a single rose on his coffin as his hearse stopped there on the way to his internment. There's been a few changes to the bathtub race, but all for the better. They have the great race, which is the big one, but they have smaller races. They have races for kids and just smaller races with smaller motors, that sort of thing. And different classes. But the great race is the big one. The Aussies used to bring their tubs over all the way from Australia about 40 years ago. No, about 1980. A bit more than that, about 1980. I was working for a budget rental truck. I had to pick this couple up at the ferry and bring them to the office like a rent a vehicle. And we're driving back, and they said they were in town looking forward to the bathtub race. I said, "You came all the way from Texas." I forget what city it was. I said, "You came all the way from Texas to see the race." He says, "Well, our son-in-law is in the race." I said, "Oh, he lives here." They said, "Oh, no, he lives in, it's Galveston." They lived in Galveston, Texas. He said, "Oh, no, he built this tub there, and there's, I guess, a lake or something somewhere. He goes and he puts it out there, and he goes around there and tests it out, make sure it's running, son." He drove it all the way up here in a U-Haul type thing. So they're coming up here to support him. I mean, he was her son-in-law, right? It shows you the dedication and how well known it's become globally, you know. And there's bathtub races now in different parts of the world. I think Washington has some bathtub races. I know Australia, New Zealand, a few places have them. But if you Google bathtub race, this is where it started, right here in Nanaimo. And Frank Ney was the man who started it all. So there it is, my pirate friends. Arr! I always wanted to be a pirate, but I just couldn't get my ship